What's different about us is that we are allowing people to kind of have it your way. You can choose the house. You can choose if it's 2 co-owners or all the way up to 12 co-owners. You can choose if you're coming in with all cash or if you're going to finance it. And so what this does is it allows anybody to be able to participate and kind of name what their dream is.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Triangle Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Fagioli, and this holiday season, we've got a couple of fantastic replay episodes coming your way to enjoy over the holidays. They're all about housing affordability and creative financing. Some really interesting stuff that I think is going to play well into your business plan for 2024. So I hope you enjoy these episodes as you enjoy the holiday season with your family. And we'll see you back here in 2024 on the Triangle Real Estate Podcast. See you then.
Hey, Matt, it's the Matt Show.
It's the Matt Show. We got a lot of them. We got Matt Fowler and we got lots of Matts around us. I think it's a prerequisite for connecting well to Triangle. But anyway, Matt, thanks for being here. Can you please give everybody just a little bit of background on what a Plum is and what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Plum is the easiest way for people to form groups and buy vacation houses. And the idea originated because I travel with 2 different friend groups and then my boisterous Brady Bunched family, my brother and I, my 4 stepsisters. And in my personal life, every year, someone is going like, why are we renting this place? Why don't we just all go in and buy it together? And everybody gets out the phones and everybody looks through the houses. And then the next day, nobody knows how to get off the ball. And as a serial entrepreneur, I felt like everybody has this experience. There has to be a way to make the act of forming a group, getting aligned, and getting through the process easier. And if you could do that, you can open up this $3 trillion asset class called vacation homes or second homes to tens of millions of Americans who can't kind of participate today. And so they rent or they buy timeshares. So that's where the idea originated about 2 years ago.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and we're obviously at a price point environment over the last 3 years, I'd say, where everything's kind of getting priced out of sight, and so everybody has to start looking more heavily at these things. And I'm a perfect example. I have conversations with I have adult children that are all making lots of money, and we have this conversation all the time. Like, let's buy something in Italy. Let's buy something in Hawaii, like whatever it is. And it all makes perfect sense. But like you said, the conversation sounds great. Then everybody goes home and goes, how are we going to put that deal together?
Yeah. Yeah, it's intimidating, right? I mean, there's a funny duality to this. There are 1.5 million co-owned vacation houses out there. It is a very established way for people to come together and reduce the cost of participating in vacation home ownership. The problem is, it's really messy. It's like everybody's having to reinvent the wheel every time. There's a lot of anxiety if I get one of the steps wrong. Like, will I end up getting in a fight with my brother over a jet ski and never talk to him again? Right? There's a lot of anxiety that goes with co-ownership because in the past, it's always been cobbled together by busy people who are running busy lives, and there's a lot of fear about missing steps. And so what we've done is we've really studied over 100 families and how they did co-ownership, and we pattern matched on when does it work well, when doesn't it work well. And what we've learned, Matt, is that there's about 25 or 30 things that if the group had the prescience to talk about them in advance and write them down, usually as an operating agreement. But if they got the rules nailed down, those groups over-index for happiness. And that was the signal I was looking for as I went to start Plum is there a pattern, and can I frame it up and can I make it really, really easy for people who don't know anything about co-ownership to just step through the process, define what they want, find other people that like what they want, form them into a group and let them get going. And that's what we've built.
Mm-hmm. Well, so our audience for Triangle Real Estate Podcast is all the members, agents and broker members of the Triangle MLS. And of course, we have lots of other people listening. But for agents and brokers specifically, this is a really interesting product because obviously we've got clients who are either selling a property or buying a property where this can be applied, and you can bring a group of people together as the buyer, or market it that way. So I want to really stay focused there, but also agents and brokers are, we're all, high income earners that buy stuff. And I think it's a really interesting idea. When I look at that, we're also all control freaks, agents and brokers. And I look at it and go, oh, cool. I can put the rules together and then sort of market this to other people and say, like, here's the rules for what I want to do. If you like those rules, get in. And I also want to frame the price point. You and I have talked some offline about a company called Picasso that does this at the really, really ultra high end, $6, $7, $8 million properties. And, that's a really teeny tiny, niche at the high end. And what you're doing is opening this up to a much bigger asset class of people. So can you describe that a little bit?
Would love to. Yeah. So first things first, we love Picasso. We love what they're doing. We don't see ourselves as competitive with them. And if you just thought about two things that are different, one is who they're targeting. They're kind of like NetJets, right? I mean, like NetJets did a pretty cool thing. They took private jets and they fractionalized them, and now more people can enjoy a fraction of a private jet. But you still got to be a high roller to enjoy even a fraction of a private jet. And that's the same thing with Picasso. Like their average house is $8.7 million. Their average share is somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000, which if you're going to finance it, let's say 30% down, you got to be more than $250,000 liquid just to get 44 nights a year. And that's great. The houses are amazing and they're in the best locations and they're inaccessible to 97%, 98% of Americans. And so they pulled off something really amazing, but it is a high net worth play. What's different about us is that we are allowing people to kind of have it your way. You can choose the house. You can choose if it's 2 co-owners or all the way up to 12 co-owners. You can choose if you're coming in with all cash or if you're going to finance it. And so what this does is it allows anybody to be able to participate and kind of name what their dream is. If your dream is a fishing shack in a swamp and you got your 10 best buddies who like to hunt and fish and you're all going to throw in 25 grand, like amazing. That's fantastic. Come use Plum to do that. If there are 3 of you and you want to split a $3 million property on Wrightsville Beach, that's amazing. That's great. We'll help you do that. So there's a lot of flexibility, and because we can be flexible with it, we appeal to a much larger swath of folks. Your agents and brokers will identify with the class that's just below the high net worth individuals in the financial industry is called the mass affluent. And the mass affluent are characterized by having investable assets of $100,000 to $1 million. High net worth is $1 million and above. And there are 68 million people in that class. It's like 28% of America. And so that group has good income. They've got good credit. They drive nice cars. They send their kids to nice schools. They just can't quite amass enough dollars to participate in $1.5 million house and make that make sense as a secondary home or second home. And so that group is the one that we know has the spending patterns. Those people spend a lot on here. They don't think twice about spending $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for a week at the beach, right, on Airbnb. And so those are the folks that we can provide an alternative asset to and allow them to participate in vacation home ownership. Why this is important for your agents is that it dramatically increases the number of people that they could bring an interesting offering to and get them to participate. So agents, I'd love for you to think about like all of the primary homes that you've sold in the Raleigh-Durham area. Those people have bought nice homes. They've got expendable cash. You've seen their cars. You've seen their lifestyles. You could put them into a $300,000 share and get commission off of that. And we'll handle all of it, make it really easy and reflect well on you.
And so let's go down that road as an example. So if I'm a listing agent, I've got a new property and I want to sell that property. And how do I market that as a co-ownership opportunity? And how would we work with Plum to attract buyers to that?
Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong with listing a property out on MLS and then also listing it on our platform as a fractional opportunity. So we got to take the heavy lifting. We do train our agents. It's called a Plum certified agent. We train them how to think about our tools and how to think about co-ownership. but it's an easy onboarding, and we as a concierge are there through the entire process. So we can take all the fine details of co-ownership and handle those for the agents and make them look good. And basically what they do is they pop out on the site. They say, hey, I got a lake at, I've got a lake house at Gaston or Heiko or wherever, and we want to list this as a fractional opportunity. We already have people that are looking for lake houses, shares of lake houses specifically. So we can help aggregate demand for the realtor. We can also provide content for the realtor. In addition to putting it on our site, we can give them content to make it easy to push out to their channels, their email distribution list. Most agents these days are very good at social. So if they're coming out on on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or wherever they choose to hit their audience, we can put good content into those vehicles to talk about, hey, you can get into a lake house for 150 grand or for 200 grand. Come talk to me. I'm such and such agent here in Raleigh.
I think, one of the interesting things about this too, it's a bit of an aside, but, just having something new to put in front of clients and customers to get them excited about an opportunity that maybe right now they're sort of backburnered because they're like, I don't have 800 grand or whatever. And just to open their possibilities in their mind to what might be able to be done here. I think that's interesting in and of itself. So how do you deal with things like, if I need 6 co-owners and 2 of them show up, how does that deal, wait and percolate for the other 4? And do you see people figuring it out ahead of time, like getting the group together and then going find the property? Or what does that look like?
Great question. So we have 2 different ways that people manifest co-ownership in our business. One of them is group seeking co-owners. And so these are people that go, gosh, like our lifelong dream has been to own a house in Asheville or in Boone, or hey, we really want to own down on the coast. And we'd be comfortable with, kind of up to 4 other co-owners. And so if you think about that, that's kind of conceptual. Like, I want a beach house. And so what we do is we make it really easy for them to frame that as an ad in our marketplace. And they'll be like, hey, I'm seeking to build a group. Who's interested? The other way it happens is that we have people who have houses and they want to sell some of it, but not all of it. We have a beautiful house on Pine Knoll Shores where our customer has emotional ties, family ties to the northeast part of the state, wants to keep that house in Pine Knoll Shores, but also wants to free up some of the equity she's achieved by having this house and upfitting it and that kind of thing. So what she's going to do is she's going to sell half the shares. She broke it into 8 shares. She's going to sell 4. She's going to keep 4. That allows her to keep a foot on the ground, have this nice investment vehicle, have this beautiful place to take her family to. But then she can also free up capital in the near term and then be able to enjoy it with other folks. And so it goes both ways. What's nice about the ecosystem is that we can pair and match people irrespective of which vehicle you initially come to us in. We can go like, oh, hey, wait, we know 7 people that want a lake house. Let's put this in front of them. In this podcast, is it okay to share a screen? Can I just kind of visually show that?
You can, but the vast majority is going to hear it on audio. It is available in video also, but yeah.
Right. Well, then I'll encourage your audience to go to plumcoownership.com and they can just go see the marketplace. They can see what this looks like, because a big part of this, and realtors know this, if your MLS listing looks like junk, nobody's going to pay attention to it. If your details are poorly written, nobody's going to pay attention to it. So when we built this concept of helping match people up to go get houses, we put a lot of time into the design, and those opportunities that live out in the marketplace that people react to look really nice. So you can go check those out at plumcoownership.com.
Cool. Well, and it's probably a good moment to segue a little bit to talk about the PropTech South Conference, which by the time people are hearing this will be right around the corner. But Plum is going to be part of PropTech South, and there'll be lots of conversations happening there. So if you're not already signed up to be part of the PropTech South Conference being hosted by Triangle MLS on September 21st of 2023, and then in future years as well, but it's coming right up for this year. So if you don't have your ticket yet, go to proptechsouth.com, check it out. and Matt's going to be there with us that day. But back to your regular scheduled programming. We could talk more about Plum and how it can work. Let's see. Some of the questions that I have been bouncing around in my head, Matt. One is around land. You made a reference, I think, already to sort of hunting space or whatever. But does your model can your model work well on raw land, or does it need to have some physical structure? Or what does that look like?
No, it absolutely works for any type of real property, including land. And in fact, just last night we had an inbound. A guy found a nice tract of land on the eastern shore of Maryland and is very excited about forming a group up to buy the land. The way that works is that they also articulate how they're going to improve that land. And so, so as I get into this conversation with him, part of what I'll be working to get out is like, well, what are your ideas for this? Are you going to build together? Do you want everybody to commit money towards the building of a building or a resort, or like what do you hope to do on this land? Is it a hunting club? Like what are you going to do with it? And then we capture that and we put it in the ad that goes into our marketplace, so that as people are perusing our marketplace, they may come across that and be like, boom, yes, I would love to be part of a duck club or whatever. Like, that is exactly what I'm looking for. So yes, the easy answer is you can definitively put land, you can definitively put new builds, you can certainly put existing properties, and you can also put properties that you intend to renovate. And it's really what we're working to do there is to make sure that the group that we form into an LLC really understands the kind of what the future budget looks like, and that there will be capital calls, and that everybody's understanding their commitments there.
Mm. That's really interesting. One of the things that I think is probably very common, but I end up in conversations all the time about, sort of this commune model of, hey guys, let's go buy 150 acres and let's chop it up and let's all have a little tract, and sort of everybody move to because my wife and I have already done that. But everybody comes and looks at our land. It's like, oh man, I want to do that. I got to get 10 buddies together. And it's so hard to put that deal together. So is this the first time you're kind of starting to nibble on this, or have you guys seen that deal succeed already?
We haven't taken one all the way to completion. I'll tell you an experience though. And that experience is that what usually happens to folks is that they get very wound around the axle on how to do the basics of co-ownership. Things like, how long are we investing together? What happens if somebody doesn't pay? How are we going to vote? Are we going to organize ourselves as tenants in common or as an LLC? Like, all of those things do require real thought, and there's a lot of them. And so what we're doing is we're taking all of those decisions off of the table, because we have the Plum Way. That Plum Way is already codified in our share operating agreement. So the share operating agreement is the shared homeowner agreement for real equity. We spent $10,000 to $15,000 getting that thing built around our style of doing co-ownership. And that means that it's reinforced with good, logical, progressive thinking that has the nice balance of holding everybody accountable and also allowing some flexibility for us to be able to guide folks. So that piece is already nailed down. Second piece that gets nailed down is we have a preferences alignment. We're now starting to call that the consensus builder. It's a survey, and the survey goes out to all the potential participants, and it walks them through all the decisions that we've learned can upset a group if they don't talk about them in advance. And those can be as easy as like dogs or no dogs, renters or no renters. But it gets as esoteric as, what's the underage guest policy? Because invariably, out of a group of folks, you have one lenient parent who thinks it's okay to have their 16-year-old and 10 of his buddies go up to the cabin with no supervision, and everybody else freaks out. I have to admit, I'm probably actually on the side of the lenient parent, unfortunately, but I'm probably the one that's at fault here. But but that dynamic is the kind of thing where nobody thinks to talk about it, and can cause real group stress. And so this is what's really nice about our model versus the Picasso model. The Picasso model is like, it's our way or the highway. Like, you're signing up for the Picasso rules. And what's different about that in a Plum house is that we like to say, we don't care what the rules are. We care a lot that you have a rule. and you have a rule about these specific things. And so, so this next thing that tends to get groups really worked up is that they don't know what to talk about and how to get into agreement about it. And our consensus builder does that really simply, because everybody just takes the survey, takes 3 to 5 minutes, and then our algorithms smack it together and go, hey, the only thing you guys need to talk about is the dogs and the guns. Like everything else you're already in alignment on. And like, I'll pick on the dog one here for a second. It almost always is the case that you have must-haves for dogs, and you usually have one allergy sufferer who puts hard no for dogs. It almost happens in every single case. And that's an easy one to come up with a rule for. It's like, hey, tell me about that allergy. Is this kind of EpiPen level problem? Like will you go to the hospital, or is this like itchy eyes? So you get a little bit of a sense of that. And then on the other side, you get a sense of, hey, are you talking about must have for dogs, like all dogs everywhere, all renters, there's 100 dogs? Or are you talking about one little 20-pound dog that is hypoallergenic? And, and so once you've had this conversation, 99% of the time, there is a reasonable middle ground. And then you write that thing down. Only the owners can bring dogs. Those dogs have to be under 50 pounds. The dogs have to stay in these kind of like downstairs areas. And whoever brings the dog agrees to pay an extra $100 for a deep clean, which I would do in a heartbeat, because our lovable, mischievous dog, Pete, he's part of the family. He goes where we go. And if I had to throw him in a kennel, it's like $300-400 and he'd be miserable. So I'd be happy to pay an extra $100. That would be an easy rule for me to agree to. Mm-hmm. So we find that kind of thing happens all the time. Like reasonable minds come to an easy middle ground, especially given that we know how to kind of set the stage and get people through it. It all goes into the share operating agreement. Everybody signs it. And again, those people over-index for happiness because they've already thought about all the eventualities and they've written it down.
No, I mean, I feel better really just talking it through that we have. I'm like, okay, I can start to see how this can make sense. The pet thing certainly is a big, there's dog people and there's not dog people. We have 100 dogs, and, other people have, 0 and don't want any. And it's just, you got to talk that through. What happens when somebody breaks the rules? So maybe your kid doesn't have permission, but he brings his 12 buddies up there and, causes some problems. And how do you deal with those kind of situations?
Yeah. First things first is, what do they say, that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So really, like, getting those expectations set up front helps eliminate most of that stress. But when somebody does kind of break a rule or they step around something, there's an easy vehicle to kind of say, hey, we had this agreement, let's have this conversation. B, there's a normal way to bring this up, and that is that we help facilitate what we call Plum jams. And the Plum jams are, we're going to call them like meetings or group sessions or whatever. And that sounded really boring. And I was like, well, what about a jam session? And then somebody said, what if we call it a Plum jam? And so it is now, that is the official name of those meetings of the groups, is called the Plum jams. And we certainly facilitate in the group formation and buying process. We get everybody in the habit of doing Plum jams and recording the notes and then storing those notes in group space. That's our command center that everybody has access to within their groups. So all those notes are taken, and so there's a natural cadence of where you might bring this thing up. If it gets thornier than that, we stay involved through the entire experience. We're not just about the formation and the purchase. We stay involved long term. And if you really run into like, hey, we need a third party objective person to kind of weigh in here, we can play that role as concierge. We do play that role as concierge. If it's getting thornier than that, the operating agreement clearly articulates that this will go to mediation and won't go to the courts. And so if you think about what's happening is you prevent it from happening in the first place. You have a structure that makes it easy to bring up an issue. If you can't, you reach out to your concierge for an objective third party. And if you're still stuck, then you mediate, you don't go to the courts. Like the statistical likelihood that you're going to get all the way to the place where somebody brought their kids' friends and they shouldn't have is super, super low. The last thing I would say is that generally when people go in and buy a house together, they do it in perpetuity. And that's a big mistake. Like the way we do it is we set it up on a term, just like a commercial investment. And the default is 7 years, but as a group you could set it to 5 or 10 or whatever you wanted to. But the point here is that everybody knows when they're going to get on the bus and everybody knows when they're going to get off the bus. And if you take a vote, you can change that term, but the reality is that if things are kind of stinking, like maybe someone got their tail in a knot over a behavior that somebody did or whatever, like you don't have to live with it forever. Like, hey, we're in year 5, we're gonna be listening to this thing in year 6. Like, I can suck it up for a year and I'll be done, right? And that really takes a lot of the energy out, because what ends up happening with folks is if they have to imagine doing this forever, and they get people's minds start to work on all the problems, like what happens when it's year 20 and there's 7 grandkids, and one of the grandkids married a meth head and got divorced, and now there's this meth head that owns 1/19 of the house. Like, yeah, that's scary, but in a Plum house that never happens because you have a term. And so that really helps limit long-term
I think that's really interesting. We hadn't talked about that before, and for me, I think even a 3 or 5 year term to go like, hey, this is an investment. And if we all love each other 5 years, okay, then we could just keep going. But if not, there's a trigger that says, look, the operating agreement says this property is going to be sold.
That's right.
That's really an interesting piece of it as well. Well, Matt, look, there's 100 things we could talk about here, but I think we've given the members at Triangle enough of a taste of it to kind of pique their interest, hopefully, and get back in touch with you guys. So what's the first step if an agent or a broker wants to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. We have a Plum certified agent program. It's very inexpensive. It's $189. It's only once a year, so you can opt in. We don't like subscriptions, so you can choose whether or not you keep going. When you do that, we train you on our co-ownership methodology so that you can speak intelligently about it. We provide you with a content library so that you can speak to your audience about those kinds of things. We'll even participate in co-marketing with you if you wanted to do a postcard drop, or if you wanted to do a particular ad campaign or an event. Like, we'll work with you to reach out to your audience. Important to know that we make sure that you get paid. So if you think about, maybe you've got 1,000 people over your career that you have sold primary houses to in Raleigh-Durham, and you do an outreach or two, you've been once a month kind of plugging into social media, and you get several people that raise their hand and be like, I'd be interested in that. We make sure that we register that and that you get a referral commission for bringing those people along. And so lots of ways to make money, lots of ways to look really intelligent and modern to your user base, and very easy to get involved.
Cool. Awesome. Matt, thanks for being with us. We'll see you at PropTech South on September 21st. And guys, thanks for tuning back into the Triangle Real Estate Podcast. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much, Matt.